morning students, parents, teachers, and all members of the AISC community. My name is Sung-Ho Kim, and I'm the Student Council Body President. I'm more than honored to have the privilege of speaking at this occasion, the AISC's United Nations International Day of Peace. The theme for this year's International Day of Peace is recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. Today, as we face a global health crisis, we realize that sharing is not caring anymore. Hugs and kisses have become the deadliest of weapons, and visiting our families and relatives less often have become the act of love. Walking through the front gate of AISC, I see tired students dragging their cumbersome bodies up the stairs, non-stop smiles and laughter echoing in the hallways, students sabotaging the cafeteria in groups of 2 and 3. Then all is quiet in the classrooms, tapping of pencils against the papers, clicking of fingers against the keyboard, and shushing of the teachers to the students. Though I had never thought that I missed these moments, all these minor details that have made up our school life seem like ancient history. To me, it's really engrossing that most often the things that we cherish, appreciate, and miss the most are the ones we most often overlook. These things have become so interlaced with our daily lives and ingrained in the status quo to the point where they have become indistinguishable from our everyday lives. This, however, is impossible until we experience change. Change is racing across the world. Our goal must be to embrace this change, to direct it positively, and craft a future that's more equitable, just, equal, inclusive, sustainable, and healthy. There's a well-known saying, which Johnny Mitchell sang, "You don't know what you have until it's gone. Truth is, we knew what we had. We just never thought we'd lose it." To enable us to recover this perspective, hoist us, and show us what we had failed to notice and acknowledge, it sometimes takes the harshest of reminders, the harshest of situations such as those we face now. It has struck me that there is utter importance for us to possess confidence and hope in our futures, instead of being paralyzed with fear. Recover from what one might consider the darkest moments, for every cloud has their silver lining. We're currently very fortunate to be able to sustain our learning through a virtual situation despite our current circumstances. Though we occasionally face issues with our Wi-Fi and power cuts, we're blessed to have the privilege to interact with our peers and teachers through Zoom and other online platforms. Currently, we're transitioning into hybrid, and hopefully we will soon transition into a world where masks aren't a necessity. Currently, we're at a stage globally where we must be reminded that we're not our own foes. We've reached a point where in order to recover from the devastation of our current circumstances, the unrecognized differences and complacency with one another must be eliminated. Regardless of our cultures and backgrounds, we're reminded that the world is full of much more love than there is hate. We're in a year of massive challenges. In conjunction to the issues of the pandemic, we must remember to continue to combat other pending issues such as protecting the planet, achieving equality, and reaching a point with zero hunger where people have good health and well-being, to ultimately reach the end of the road to abide in an equitable and sustainable world. Together at AISC and in our community, this road is paved with hope. There are pages unwritten, stories untold, and a new chapter to begin. I now have the privilege of opening the Parade of Nations at AISC 2021.
Argentina.
Austria.
Belgium.
Brazil.
Welcome to Canada.
Denmark. France. Germany. India. ישראל. Japan.
Korea.
Malaysia.
The Netherlands.
Pakistan.
Peru.
Russia.
Singapore,
South Africa.
Spain.
Thailand.
Turkey.
Welcome to the UK. The United States of America.
Good morning, faculty, students, and parents. My name is Lekna Gogineni, and I'm the Secretary General of this year's Treatment 15. I'm honored to be here today speaking about International Peace Day. Starting in 1981, the United Nations General Assembly adopted a resolution that declared September 21st as International Day of Peace. So what was the intention in adopting this resolution? Well, they hoped to strengthen peace, reduce tensions and conflicts among people and nations. And 20 years later, in 2001, the General Assembly voted to additionally designate the day as a period of nonviolence and ceasefire. And in February of this year, the Security Council passed a resolution that called for sustained humanitarian pause to conflicts. It is more important now than ever that we continue to honor and build on this agreement that started 4 decades ago. Looking at the world now, whether we're focusing on the situation in Afghanistan or the lesser known Tigray conflict in Ethiopia, International Peace Day and the ceasefire serve as a sign of hope for those struggling. The ceasefire this year holds further significance in regards to the COVID-19 pandemic, as it will help those in conflict receive the vaccinations and treatments that they desperately need. In celebrating International Peace Day, the UN focuses on one theme annually. This year's theme focuses on recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. Over the past 2 years, the world has been consumed by the coronavirus pandemic. The pandemic has exacerbated and illuminated inequalities across the world. For example, it has created stark division in education and technology simultaneously. We see the real-time effects of the digital divide due to the pandemic, with millions of children unable to continue their education as they lack the technology they need. According to UNICEF, 1 billion children are at risk of falling behind in school and even never returning back to school. This widens the gap between the privileged and underprivileged. It also puts the work put in by teachers, NGOs, and the UN since its creation for providing education for all at risk. This theme emphasizes as we recover from this pandemic, the steps we must take should not help people in the short term only, but also in the long term. The theme also highlights the fact that we're not recovering only from a pandemic, but also from increased inequalities, discrimination, and hatred, and that we must tackle these issues simultaneously. Global carbon emissions dropped by 7% in 2020, And this brings us closer to meeting our 2 degrees Celsius goal of the Paris Agreement on climate change. As the pandemic took the center of our lives, many issues were pushed aside. It is important to acknowledge that even through the pandemic, issues like climate change have continued to grow. So as we move forward, we must collectively work to renew focus on these urgent issues and use the disruptions and changes brought by the pandemic to create better change. For example, with regards to climate change, if governments invest in climate action as a part of pandemic recovery by combining green pandemic recovery and solidified commitments to action on behalf of the governments, it is believed that we can pass the goal of 2 degrees Celsius. However, if we don't seize this opportunity to demand and act on the change we need to create a sustainable future, this would lead to an increased deadly heat waves, massive losses in biodiversity, and it is predicted that 90% loss of all hard coral in the Great Barrier Reef. The pandemic has taught us that we can change our behaviors. We must take this as a sign of hope and as motivation for acting on change. In order to move forward into creating a better world for everybody, a world where everybody is welcome and can live in peace, we must change our current habits, which we are more than capable of. The pandemic has created a catalyst where the human race can step back and recognize we aren't each other's enemies. And it's common when talking about recovering from the pandemic to talk about going back to normal or the old way of life. But it's important that we don't go back to the old way of life, but create an even better version than before. We must seize this opportunity of collectively recovering from pain to create a world where there is more happiness and peace. Ending with some words from Antonio Guterres, the Secretary General of the United Nations. Peace is the foundation of that recovery. We cannot build a sustainable, resilient, peaceful world while we are at war with nature. Recovery efforts offer an opportunity to transform our relationship with our planet and environment. People everywhere can be a part of this transformation for peace by standing up against hatred, discrimination, and by caring for the planet and showing global solidarity. Thank you.
1 year, 5 months, and 24 days. This is the exact number of days it's been since India announced a nationwide lockdown due to the coronavirus pandemic. My name is Keshav Menon. I am an MSMUN delegate in 8th grade, and I would like to welcome you all, students, parents, and faculty members, to the 76th UN Day of Peace. A lot has happened in the world since the lockdown first began. There have been over 213 million cases of coronavirus worldwide, and almost 4.5 million deaths. India alone has registered over 32 million coronavirus cases and over 430,000 deaths. While over 2.5 billion people have been administered the vaccine worldwide, unfortunately, that's only 30% of the world's population. The UN has said that over 100 countries have not received even a single dose of any of the vaccines. At the same time, in countries such as the US, where there is an abundance of vaccines available, there's a controversy about getting vaccinated, which is unfortunately allowing a variant of the coronavirus, the Delta variant, to become more virulent. But coronavirus is not the only global challenge we're facing at this time. Several countries are in the throes of ethnic strife. Be it in Yemen, where the Houthi rebels have been fighting an insurgency against the civilian government, or in Syria, where there's a prevailing civil war. Whether it be the very long, yet unresolved Israeli-Palestinian conflict, or the unraveling of events over the past month in Afghanistan, where the Taliban have seized control over the major cities and provinces once again after a lapse of 2 decades. The depth of human suffering is unconscionable and barbarous. Who can forget the sights and sounds of Afghans desperately seeking any and all means to flee the country? The Kabul airport has become the epicenter of human desperation. Images of people clinging onto C-17s have been etched in our minds. At the same time, climate change is no longer just a phrase. Floods are rampant all over Europe and North America. Glaciers are melting in both the northern and the southern hemisphere, and in a CNN climate change article, a photographer named Kemi Seaman gave a report on what she's noticed in Antarctica. She's been visiting Antarctica since 2004 and has noticed the many changes that have been occurring over the past few years. Seaman points out the snow algae she has photographed. I quote, "That's a normal occurrence," she says. "That's not unusual. But what is unusual is that I've not seen the algae before March blooming in the glaciers. It's now showing up in December and January. That's 2 to 3 months ahead of time." She also said that the ice has been melting immensely. Snow once covered the ground. Now all of the mud and rocks that were once far beneath the snow are clearly visible. The recent report by the Intergovernmental Panel for Climate Change, or IPCC, is damning and has predicted dire consequences if human-induced climate change factors are not immediately addressed. This should be a wake-up call for this generation and the next to undo the damage inflicted on the planet over the last century. The world is never going to be perfect. In fact, it never has been. Throughout human history, there have been myriad instances where either natural or man-made tribulations have resulted in cataclysmic consequences. And yet, it is this collective kindred of human spirit that has been the recourse for survival over centuries of human existence. It is this unified resolve that we must call upon to not just face the adversities, but to overcome them and make this world a better place. We must believe in the notion that there will be a brighter day after a gloomy night, and that there will be calm waters after rough seas. We have to look at the positive themes and ideas that do come out of our misfortunes. The theme for this year's UN Day is Recovering Better for an Equitable and Sustainable World. What this means is that we must set aside our differences and heal each other during these uncertain times. We have to look at each other and see that we are all human together, not separated by a race, religion, ethnicity, or culture. At the same time, we must look at the world we live in and reflect on our actions that contribute to climate change. The United Nations, in an article on the UN Day theme, said, I quote, "We invite you to join the efforts of the United Nations family as we focus on recovering better for an equitable and peaceful world. Celebrate peace by standing up against acts of hate online and offline, and by spreading compassion, kindness, and hope in the face of the pandemic and as we recover." End quote. So friends, I take this opportunity to call upon one and all to come together with a single-minded purpose of recovering better for an equitable and sustainable world. Thank you.
These are some things that I am doing to make the community better in the future. These things are recycling, not using plastic, and if I do, it is the kind that you can reuse, and planting plants.
I am actually not trashing stuffs on the street. Instead, I'm trashing in the trash can.
By not being on screen too much, because when you charge your laptop and be on screen, when you're on screen, you waste energy.
Not going out much to public space, so Corona will be gone. And also if there's an important reason I'm going out, I'm going to wear a mask and go out, since that's very important.
By not destroying the plants and picking up the trash on the beach and buying local stuff.
One thing I do to make a better community for the future is to trash separately, glasses by glasses, plastics by plastics, and paper by paper to make a better environment.
First, I will throw trash in the trash can instead of throwing on the street. Next, I will pick some trash on the street or especially in the beach. Last, I will recycle some water bottles for the environment.
By not saying bad words and being friends with new children and helping them make more friends. I also help by picking up plastic since it's harmful for the environment.
I wear a mask
when I go out, and I sanitize my hands when I go back to home, and I wash my hands whenever I eat.
I don't say bad words, and I always been kind and friendly.
Yeah, 2 days ago on Saturday, my brother had a foot surgery, so now I've been helping him to feel better and helping also my dad from stressing out about it. So I've been doing that to make my community better.
By using less plastic and using reusable cups instead of plastic that you use one time and you put in the trash.
To maybe recycle things and not throw trash in the street. I can recycle, and also I can get a campaign like let's don't garbage trash like this. By using less air conditioner.
By sanitizing my hands and also wearing a mask, and also reminding my parents to wear masks.
We can save plants and trees to make oxygen and food, also animals.
I am helping for making the community better in the future. By when I go to the beach, I always collect some trash that comes out from the shore, and I also try to pick up trash when I see one.
The thing that I hope for the community in the future is I don't throw trash to the ground, and I don't just cut trees. I plant trees and flowers.
I think we should do kind of some volunteer, make air systems to save art and help others.